found this article on Cybersecurity magazine called A Closer Look at the 5 Laws of Cybersecurity, written by Martin Banks. So it's pretty interesting. So it's funny, he starts off saying most business owners are looking for a starting point to easily get into cybersecurity, but they get lost in a swarm of information, or as I like to call, the noise. And so that's why this person broke this down into 5 laws, kind of 5 foundations that are just true across the board, because this thing is changing daily, hourly, minutely. And so there really is no kind of set list per se that this is it and you can walk away and know you're all good. It doesn't work like that. We're seeing stuff in the news all the time, and the world is changing and the bad actors are changing, and it's just very important to stay on top of it. So what are these 5 laws? So number 1, treat everything like it's vulnerable. So I love this. He says and I'm a Texan, so here we go. The first rule of gun safety is to treat every firearm like it's loaded. Amen. Because if you assume that it is loaded, the gun is not going to have a problem. The minute you assume it's not loaded is where there's an issue. And so that's rule number 1 of gun safety. So cybersecurity is the same thing. If you assume it's loaded, you're gonna make sure and keep that muzzle pointed in the right direction. You're going to keep your finger off the trigger. That's the way that works. And so it's a mindset thing, right? And so treat everything like it's vulnerable. So vulnerabilities are key, right? Those are the open doors and unlocked windows into the environment. And so if you leave the door wide open and you get robbed, I'm sorry you got robbed, but you shouldn't have left the door wide open. Like, come on. It's the same thing in the cyber world. You leave the window unlocked, somebody comes in your house, you shouldn't have left the window unlocked. Like, come on. They shouldn't have come in your house. I get it. But that's just, back on planet Earth, that's not the world we live in, unfortunately. If the window's unlocked, the door's wide open, someone's going to come in. We actually had that happen a few years ago in our neighborhood. There was this whole rash of people would leave their front door unlocked in the night. And one person told the story, and they walked out at like 3 in the morning. And it was like these 2 guys walking out with their TV. They had just come right into the house, took the TV, and were just walking out with it. Okay. But they left the door unlocked. Don't leave the door unlocked. And so it's the same for cybersecurity. Like, close the obvious things down. Like, don't leave the doors and windows open. And that's really the point here. And the minute you think that you're secure and nothing is vulnerable, that's the minute that it all goes wrong. So that's the whole point. Treat everything like it's vulnerable. Everything. Now listen to this. You probably are thinking computers. That's great. But listen to this. Data, devices, users, people, partners, third parties, vendors, services, programs, applications, all of it. Assume it's all vulnerable. Assume there's big open doors and unlocked windows in all of it, because it's a mindset. As soon as you have that mindset, then you start looking for those things and you start looking to close and lock those. And that is a huge part of the battle, is staying ahead of the bad actor. Oh, look at that. He's walking up your sidewalk. Bam! Door shut. Whew. Okay. That's it. And then don't just assume that it's done. Verify it. Trust but verify. It's my husband, one of his favorite phrases. Trust but verify. Same thing. Assume everything is vulnerable, so you start looking for where those problems are, then start plugging those problems, and then never trust it. Assume it's always vulnerable. You're never done. And always be verifying. And there's tools, obviously, that will help you with this, help to automate it, help to identify it, all of the above, right? But you don't have to go buy a bunch of whiz-bang tools. You can do it with processes and people. It's doable. I see it. The point is, you're bringing your wrist down. You're bringing your wrist down. You may have 10 open doors. Close 9 of them. Great. Okay, you still have 1. Yeah, that's not great, but you don't have 10 anymore. So just keep working at it. And that's the whole point. Number 2, assume people won't follow the rules. I love it. Cybersecurity is ultimately a people problem. Breaches, most breaches are tied back to people ultimately. So this is great. Assume people aren't going to do what they're supposed to do. Because, same thing, just like with the one before. If you assume people are going to do what they should do, you're going to just take it out of your mind. If you assume that they're not going to do what they should do, you're going to put compensating controls in place to at least alert when they don't do what they need to do, or shut it down potentially. And so that's very important, is that human error. And then this, I love this phrase: people often pick convenience over security, even if they know better. Like, well, I'm supposed to create a ticket, and I'm supposed to put my notes in there, and I'm supposed to prioritize it, and oh my gosh, I'm just gonna go. It is fine. I'll just do it tomorrow. It'll be fine. And there you go. There's your failure right there. And so I love that. People often pick convenience over security, and complacency is a part of human nature. So assume that people are going to bypass procedures and things that are in place. Sometimes they're going to do it on purpose because they're being complacent, or they just don't feel like doing it, or they're being mean spirited. And sometimes they're going to do it because they flat forgot and they made a mistake, and that's just what happens. So it's very important that you think about, especially your higher risk areas. You can't do this for every single process across your organization. That's unrealistic. That's why you do an analysis of understanding what your key business processes are and the impact to the organization, and then fit your tightest controls around those processes, and have compensating controls. If Susie doesn't do what she's supposed to do, well, maybe there's something in the system that alerts, or maybe Barbara runs a report once a week and validates, not because we don't trust Susie, but because it's such a high risk area, we need a second set of eyes. And then maybe even a third set of eyes. Maybe the manager, or maybe somebody in a totally different team looks at it. And so, because it's such a high risk area. And so that's the mindset you want to have when you build out your control environment. What are the risks? Where are the highest risk areas, processes, data, systems, all of that? Where's my point of failure? Where are people going to get lazy? Where are they going to get sloppy and forget stuff? And then what additional controls can I put into place? Monitoring, alerting, additional reporting, whatever, to keep oversight of that. And that's very important. And then assume people are not going to do what they're supposed to do, not because we want to be mean to people, but because we want to be in a right posture to really make sure our environment is secure. Number 3, if you don't need it, get rid of it. So this is very common. Companies over the years, they accumulate assets, devices, they accumulate software, they accumulate all this extra stuff, and then they don't even need it. They don't even use it. And so software, let's just take that one. Oh yeah, we used that software 3 years ago, but we didn't actually delete it off of anybody's computer. So that means we're not actually patching it, we're not actually monitoring it and staying on top of it. There's your big vulnerability right there. So the point here is, here's the point. Running your cyber program takes time, effort, money, people, and all of that's fixed, right? There's fixed time, fixed people, fixed resources, fixed money, right? But it takes all of those things to run your program well. So if I have 100 assets, I'm just making that up, and I only need really 70 because I've just been sloppy and I haven't pruned these off, that means my technical controls now have to be around 100. Or it means I'm not paying attention to these, which is even a bigger risk. That's even a bigger problem. But let's assume we're monitoring all this. That's great. But now I'm doing it at 100, but I only need to do it on 70. So one is diverting my attention away from the 70 to focus on these that really don't even matter. They could be pruned off. Or two, I'm spending all this extra time that I don't need to spend. And I'm having to build up my team, and I'm having to pay additional licensing on tools to monitor things that they're not really even critical to the business. I don't even really need them. So this is where, like, a business impact analysis, a business continuity plan can really help to go into with your business owners and have these conversations. Do you use these things? Do you have these processes still? What are the platforms? This is the tools that we have. This is what we thought you were doing. Oh, you're not doing that anymore. Okay, well, we need to know that. And this is where you have these conversations. What are my assets? How many surplus assets do I have? Do I know where they are? All of these kind of different things. And so it's important that you have these processes in place to stay on top of that, because otherwise you're doing extra work that costs money and time that we don't have a surplus of, or it's diverting your attention away from where it really needs to be spent the time. And so very important, if you don't need it, just get rid of it. It's a risk, and it's a waste of resources.